Section 21 of Sun, Moon, and Stars, Astronomy for Beginners. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by Randy Boyum. Sun, Moon, and Stars, Astronomy for Beginners by Agnes Giberne. Section 21. More about Comets and Meteors. He commanded, and they were created. Psalms 148:5. There have been several comets of importance seen in the present century. In 1811 a remarkably fine one appeared. The bright nucleus was only about 400 miles in diameter, but the whole head, including the envelope or coma, measured 112 thousands of miles across, and the enormous tail stretched out to a distance of 112 millions of miles. This comet travels in so long and narrow an ellipse that some say his return must not be looked for in less than 30 centuries. The great comet, which in 1682 received first the name of Halley's Comet, appeared last in 1835, his return having been foretold within 3 days of its actually taking place. For Halley's Comet is a member of the solar system, having a yearly journey of 76 earthly years. He journeys nearer to the Sun than Venus, and travels farther away than Neptune. In 1843 appeared one of the brightest comets ever seen, and also one of the nearest to the Sun. So close ran his orbit to the center of our system that at one time his nucleus was only about 30,000 miles from the Sun's surface. When we remember that sun flames often rise to a height of more than 50,000 miles, we shall see how terrific must have been the heat endured. In the years 1858, 1861, and 1862, 3 more comets appeared, all visible without the help of a telescope. Of these 3, Donati's comet in 1858 was far superior to the rest. It was a singular fact about the comet of 1858 that at one time the star Arcturus could be seen shining through the densest portion of the tail, close to the nucleus. Now, although the faintest cloud wreath of Earth would dim if not hide this star, yet the tail of the comet was of so transparent a nature that Arcturus shone undimmed as if no veil had come between. The exceedingly slight and airy texture of a comet's tail could hardly be more plainly shown. It was this gauzy appendage to a little nucleus which men once thought could destroy our solid Earth at a single blow. Yet, while taking care not to overrate, we must not underrate. True, the comets are delicate and light in structure. One comet in 1770 wandered into the very midst of Jupiter's moons, and so small was its weight that it had no power whatever, so far as has been detected, to disturb the said moons in their orbits. Jupiter and his moons did very seriously disturb the comet, however, and when he came out from their midst, though none the worse for his adventure, he was forced to travel in an entirely new orbit and never managed to get back to his old pathway again. But there are comets and comets, some being heavier than others. The comet named after Donati, albeit too transparent to hide a star, was yet so immense in size that his weight was calculated by one astronomer to amount to as much as a mass of water 40,000 miles square and 109 yards deep. When first noticed, Donati's comet had, like all large comets, a bright envelope of light round the nucleus. After a while, the one envelope grew into 3 envelopes, and a new tail formed beside the principal tail, which for a time was seen to bend gracefully into a curve like a splendid plume. A third but much fainter tail also made its appearance, and many angry-looking jets were poured out from the nucleus. These changes took place while the comet was passing through the great heat of near neighborhood to the Sun. Afterwards, as he passed away, he seemed gradually to cool down and grow quiet. The singular changes in the appearance of Newton's comet have been earlier noticed. No marvel that he did undergo some alterations. The tremendous glare and burning heat which that comet had to endure in his rush past the Sun were more than 25,000 times as much as the glare and heat of the fiercest tropical noonday ever known upon Earth. Can we wonder that he should have shown signs of great excitement, that his head should have grown larger and his tail longer? It certainly was amazing and bewildering that the said tail, over 90 millions of miles in length, should in 4 days have seemingly swept round in an enormous half-circle, so as first to point in one direction and then to point in just the opposite direction. We are much in the habit of speaking about comets as traveling through the heavens with their tails streaming behind them, but though this is sometimes the case, it is not always so. The tails of comets always stream away from the sun, whether before or behind the comet's head, seeming to be a matter of indifference. As the comet comes hurrying along his orbit with ever-increasing speed towards the sun, the head journeys first and the tail follows after. But as the comet rounds the loop of his orbit near the sun, the point nearest of all being called his perihelion, the head always remains towards the sun, while the tail swings, or seems to swing, in a magnificent sweep round, pointing always in the direction just away from the sun. Then, as the comet journeys with slackening speed on the other side of his orbit towards the distant aphelion, or farthest point from the sun, he still keeps his head towards the sun. So at this part of his passage, in place of the head going first and the tail following after, the tail goes first and the head follows after. The comet thus appears to be moving backwards, or like an engine pushing instead of drawing a train, the head seems to be driving the tail before it. This careful avoidance of the sun by comets' tails is remarkable. Astronomers speak of the repulsive energy with which the sun sweeps away from his neighborhood the light gauzy appendages of a comet, but the precise nature of that repulsion and the mode of its working are not yet manifested. It need not be supposed that the enormous tails, millions of miles in length, are formed of unbroken and connected substance, whirled round like a vast kite-tail or a stupendous fan at a perfectly unimaginable speed. The actual make of the tails cannot yet be stated with certainty, but there is a growing belief among astronomers that electricity may have something of a hand in the matter. After all, the tail is a mere adjunct to the comet, no more needful to a comet's existence than a man's beard is to the man's existence. According to ordinary notions, a full-blown comet consists of the bright central nucleus, the surrounding coma, and the far-reaching tail. But if you have the nucleus, you have the comet, and no more is necessary. It is known to be a comet, not a star, mainly by the path that it follows and the rates of its motions. The coma has been described by Dr. Huggins as usually a luminous fog surrounding the nucleus and gradually shading off from it, and the tail as a continuation in a direction opposite to that of the sun of the luminous fog of the coma. Except in the sun's neighborhood, a comet's tail has commonly no existence. As the wanderer draws near to our luminary, a tail of less or greater dimensions is often developed under the increasing heat, and as the wanderer passes away once more, the tail diminishes and disappears. Spectrum analysis declares that comets usually consist of carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, and possibly oxygen, all, of course, in a state of highly heated and light-emitting gas. To some extent, also, a comet reflects the sunlight. More than this is known of the nature of comets through studying the nature of their near of kin, meteors and meteorites. Speaking at the same time as just cited, Dr. Huggins said further, "We are thus led to see the close physical connection and oneness of origin, if not indeed identity of nature, of comets and of these meteors. Now the meteors, on these occasions, the great meteor showers, are too minute to pass through the ordeal of ignition by our atmosphere. They are burned up before they reach the earth. But at other times small celestial masses come down to us which, there can be little doubt, are of the same order of bodies and similar in chemical nature." Here again spectrum analysis steps in and tells us that in the make of celestial meteorites falling to earth, among diverse other substances may be found the hydrogen, carbon, and nitrogen which we have already seen to be the main substances in the composition of comets. True, a fallen meteorite is small, solid, heavy, while a comet is light and hazy. But if the materials of which a meteorite is made were rendered gaseous, then at once it would be not only much larger, but light and hazy. In 1867 a large lecture room was entirely lighted by means of gas extracted from a meteorite which had arrived from distant space. Not only do solid aerolites fall half burned to the ground, but even when the meteorites are quite consumed in the air, the fine dust remaining still sinks earthward. This fine dust has been found upon mountain tops, and has been proved by close examination to be precisely the same as the material of the solid aerolites. It is a wonderful thought that we really should have these visitants from the sky, solid metal or showers of dust, coming to us from distant space. If the dust of thousands of meteorites is always thus falling earthward, one would imagine that it must, in time, add something to the weight of the earth. And this is actually the case. During the last 3,000 years, no less than 1,000,000 tons of meteorite dust must, according to the calculation, have fallen to earth out of the sky. 1,000,000 tons is, of course, a mere nothing compared with the size of the world. Still, the fact is curious and interesting. Some of the tremendous outbursts seen on the surface of the sun have been described earlier. It is believed that in such outbursts, matter is driven forth with violence sufficient to send it whirling through space, never to return thither. Many meteorites may have had their birth thus, whether from our own sun or from stars like in nature to our sun. It has been conjectured that some meteorites may also have sprung from earthly volcanoes, being shot aloft with impetus enough to carry them to a vast distance, breaking loose perhaps for a while from Earth's control, but after a lengthened period it may be accidentally traveling earthward once more. A few more words about comet visitors. Many comets, as stated earlier, belong to the solar system, but many also come only once, flashing round the sun and rushing away in a new direction, never to return. Any comet at about the distance of our Earth from the sun, traveling at a rate of more than 26 miles per second, is beyond solar control. The sun is powerless to hold prisoner so impulsive a vagrant, and it must find its way out of the solar system. Comets which come to us from outside our system must come from some other system, and the nearest systems known are those of the stars. The nearest star of all, among those whose distance has yet been measured, is Alpha Centauri. A comet passing from Alpha Centauri to our solar system would require millions of years for his journey, but it is not impossible that other stars may lie nearer to us than Alpha Centauri, although the fact has not yet been discovered. End of section 21, read by Randy Boyum, Denver, Colorado, December 26, 2024.